Alright, this tutorial is going to show you how to take the slope of a line and an ordered pair of a line it passes through and put it into point slope form. And we're going to do that using our point slope formula. So the first thing that I want to do is whenever we have one like this, I typically like to make sure that I rewrite my slope as m is equal to 3, because notice they gave us a slope of 3. And I usually just rewrite it so that way I can reference it and find it quickly. And then when it says it goes through a point and they're giving us an x and y value, I just label the x value x1 and I label the y value y1, because we're going to be substituting the slope and our x value and our y value into this point slope formula. So we're going to use our y value here, our x value here, and then m. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to rewrite this. I'm going to go ahead and put y minus, and for y1 I'm going to substitute my y1 value, which happens to be positive 1 according to the ordered pair they gave us. I am going to put it in parentheses, and I say always put it in parentheses when you're substituting for a variable, because in this case if this was negative 1 I would have a negative sign inside of here as well, and then a negative times a negative will give me a positive. So just to make sure we don't make any mistakes with distributing, I recommend that you typically will put the variable in a set of parentheses. Now I am going to show you an exception to the rule on this next variable, m, which is our slope. The reason is because there's no number that's in front of it to be multiplied to it. In other words, we have equals, and then we're going to go ahead and go straight to our slope value, which is 3. So anytime that you're using this point slope formula, don't worry about putting the m value in parentheses. And this is the only exception. This is the only time you'll see me say this, and it'll just make life a little easier on you. But if you do put it in parentheses, it doesn't hurt anything, but it's not necessary. So I'm going to go ahead and now bring down my parenthesis, bring down my x and my minus sign, and then we're going to replace x1 with the x1 value from the ordered pair, which is 2. So I'm going to put a 2 right there after the minus sign. I am going to put this one in parentheses. And it doesn't make a lot of difference when you're substituting a positive number, but if you were substituting negative 2, for instance, it would make a difference. I've seen a lot of mistakes where people forget to distribute. But so always, when you're replacing the x value and the y value, always put those two in parentheses. Now, in all honesty, we're almost done at this point. We just want to go ahead and distribute the negative sign for this y value and for this x value. And then we're going to stop there, and it'll be put in what we call point slope form. So this is right here, negative times 1, right? That's like saying, remember there's an invisible 1 here? So that's really like saying negative 1 times positive 1. And if we were to do that right, that would just give us negative 1. Bring down the y. In this case, I was able to distribute and drop the parentheses. And this is going to be equal to my slope, which is 3. And then I have parenthesis x. And in this case, we're taking this negative sign and distributing it to the positive 2, which simply just makes it a, so negative 1 times positive 2. And that's just going to make it minus 2, or negative 2. And close parenthesis. And then this is your answer right here. This is in what we call point slope form. Now I'm going to give you one more example so you can see why I was telling you that you should always put the x and y value when you're substituting it in parentheses. I want to show you an example where it would be important to have it. So I'm just going to make up a random problem. So let me go ahead and we're going to adjust this camera real quick. So in this one, notice that we have our slope value of 4, right? It says we have a slope of 4 right here. So this time I'm going to box it and just put an m right there. That's my m value. And then we have our x1 and we have our y1 value. So let's go ahead and substitute it. Now notice this time I'm dealing with an ordered pair that has a negative value for x and a negative value for y. And this is why I tell you got to use parentheses. You're going to see that we're going to have a sign change. For instance, if I rewrite this, this is going to be y minus my y1 value. So in parentheses, I'm going to go, my y1 value is negative 1. So I'll put that in there, close parenthesis, equals my m value, which is positive 4, So that one we're not going to put in parentheses because it's just the slope. And then I have parenthesis x minus my x1 value, which happens to be -2. And close parenthesis. Now I will tell you that I have never, on all the tests that I've ever seen, especially if it's multiple choice, if it's asking you to put something like this into point slope form, if you were to give it like this, it would count it incorrect because you need to distribute the negative signs. And I want you to notice, if you just had minus, and it's what I see a lot of students do, if they just have a minus sign here and they see that the y value is already -1, a lot of times they'll write the 1, and because they see that minus sign there, they think that they've already carried the negative sign over when they haven't. But if you put parentheses, you can clearly see you have a minus sign and a negative sign on the inside. Now this is important because when we distribute and take that -1 and multiply it to this -1, in other words, the outside one, I'm going to do it in black, that minus sign is really -1 times what's inside the parenthesis, which is also -1. It's going to have a sign change because a negative times a negative makes it a positive. So it becomes +1. Now I can go ahead and bring down my y, but so it's no longer y minus -1, it's y plus 1. And that's going to be equal to, I'm going to bring down my slope, which is 4, and I'm going to go ahead, write my parenthesis, bring down my x, and notice right here, once again, we have the same situation. This is a -1 times a -2. So we have -1 times what's inside the parenthesis, which is -2. And once again, a negative times a negative makes it a positive. So it's going to be +2. And if this were the STAR test that you had taken previously when you did Algebra 1, or if it was an assessment, most assessments that I've ever seen, if they said they wanted you to put this situation right here in point slope form, this is what the answer would look like, because they would go ahead and distribute those two negative signs. So you'd have y plus 1 equals 4 times x plus 2. And this would be what we call our point slope form. And that's all there is to it.